So what do you then see as the most overlooked or underused innovation, whether that's a methodology or practice or technology that can really impact how businesses connect with their customers?
Yeah, I'll kind of keep talking, I guess.
Yeah, just roll with it.
You know what, I've seen a trend that really speaks to me is when businesses engage their customer-to-customer interactions. And I don't necessarily mean through reviews or asking to review a device for somebody else, but setting up user groups or really removing themselves from the equation and linking the usage of the customers to each other. I've heard stories of customers or companies that will have products shared between consumer base, and they're curating that in the theme of curation. And you don't see that quite utilized much yet, but it certainly feels innovative in a way to make the consumers or the personalization feel connected to the company.
I mean, I'm going to kind of riff on that a little bit because when we launched Reverb, I own a guitar store. I bought a guitar store in 2010 called the Chicago Music Exchange. I was not into retail. I had never sold a guitar. I'd only been a player and a musician, but I'd never really realized what it was like to own a store. And I realized very quickly that it was an industry where haggling and negotiation was like so part of the culture, almost like a used car experience, whereas you're offered a discount before you even ask for it in most music stores. So when we launched Reverb, I realized that the differentiator that we could build was this whole messaging channel and this offers going back and forth and adding a whole level of communication that some of our competitors didn't have, and making it very friendly and building ways to riff on that, making it so that people could actually connect on Reverb and have an experience around a piece of gear. And it's really turned out it was not really intentional. We didn't know to what extent it would be, but when Pete Townsend from The Who emails me that he's made new friends and he's bought old gear that he used to use on recordings through Reverb, it just blows my mind. So once again, by using the product and focusing on that communication channel, we've really enabled people to connect with each other in this C2C way, which only strengthens our brand.
That's
I'd
cool.
probably say, if I could add quickly, so I wouldn't say a specific technology, but I will talk more about an industry or a vertical that has kind of missed the boat on technology and using it in the right way, and that's unfortunately public sector. How many of you would say, jump off your chair and say, I got a great experience, technology experience from state of Illinois? Or sometimes city of Chicago is doing much. Now, I would not have said this 5 months ago. I was the CIO for the state, and we did fantastic things. In fact, if you were a business in Illinois, we gave you an opportunity to renew your license online without really seeing anybody, or even apply for the new license online. So we did bring those technology, but in general, what I feel like is the public sector has been significantly behind in using technology because it is G2C or G2Me. And it is probably, I mean, they should care the most of providing the experience because, again, that's how I value my government as to the experience I get from living in that city. And that's why we are seeing millennials, my kids are going to make a decision based on the experience that they get living in the city. So it is, to me, a trend that public sector has missed. Now, things are changing. We are seeing cities like Vegas using Alexa. So, you know, citizens in Vegas can say, hey, Alexa, can you ask Go Vegas when is the next council meeting? Or which park is available for me to use? So there are now governments picking up on, and I'm sure in the next few years, there'll be governments that will be leapfrogging some of the intermittent technology and going into the next wave.
And in education, one thing that we see, so Leap Innovations is sort of a set of evidence-based guidelines for creating a personalized learning experience. One starting point of that is what we call learner-focused, which just means like how well do you know the child in front of you in terms of strengths, needs, and interests. And I got 2 kids, and anyone here with 2 kids, like, you know how incredibly different they are? And it goes back to like, don't just give the same thing to every single kid in front of you, but really understand them and their nuances. And it's amazing how much in education technology and even in school design, people just step up and start delivering content and experiences without ever stopping to understand the user. And so it refers almost to what David mentioned of like, You actually got to use it to understand it. We try to have teachers just shadow their kids for a day. But if you're an ed tech product or designer, step one, like understand what the child is and where they're at versus just delivering and go, because it's a bad user experience, first of all, but then two, if they're actually trying to learn, the better you can customize it to it based on genuine understanding, the better the product will be.
We've had a very analogous experience in healthcare, and it happens in surgery, where oftentimes you design a device, but the thing is, surgeons do things differently, they're trained different ways, they're working on different types of patients, and so it's not one size fits all. And I think what's interesting, maybe you separated us in the back row who probably have harder markets to enter in some ways, but I think people will talk about government, education, healthcare. They all are public goods, and there's some of the sectors that I personally think have been harder to penetrate with new technology in terms of introducing new services. And I think a lot of it comes down to, well, who is your exact consumer, right? Is it the teacher? Is it the student? For us, is it the surgeon? Is it the medical device company? Is it the patient? For the government, there's so many different users. And so a lot of it does come down to really understanding that experience. Like David said, we did use our very first alpha version in an actual surgery on a patient, which was terrifying. But we did it because we said, we can't just sit here in our room and talk about what is this product going to be. And that's when we figured out, okay, well, if we want people to interact with the tablet in a sterile drape, then the user design of how big our buttons are and where we put them on the screen has to be designed exactly for that setting. And, if we're working with this orthopedic company, well, then this subset of patients is entirely different than that subset. And so we can't assume that one way of training people on how to work this is going to work. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of it really comes down to seeing your product in action, understanding it, understanding all those different nuances of use cases.